All right, what's going on, guys? So today, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go over the worksheet that I assigned you guys on Wednesday. Okay, basically just looking at station models because next week we're going to start going into um, moisture in the atmosphere and how it really affects these station models. But before we can get into it, I just want to learn or teach you guys how to read what the station models, what it's giving you. Okay. So really quick, definitely should have your earth science reference table out and go to page 13, okay? Because we're going to be using the bottom of that page, especially when it relates to keys to weather map symbols, all right at the bottom, okay? So hopefully you had time to look over the worksheet that I gave you on Wednesday, and we're basically going to go over these questions, okay, for today. So really quick, if you're looking at page 13, you'll see that it breaks up the station miles into different areas, okay? So for the first part, it shows you what a station model looks like, okay? This is how it's going to be off of any map that we look at in the future. Then it shows you what all of those symbols mean next to the station model. Then it gives you the present weather, the air masses that are associated with it, the fronts and hurricanes and tornadoes. So those three last ones, the air masses, the fronts, and the hurricanes and tornadoes, we haven't looked at a map that has these yet, okay? We're only going to be looking at the station model explanation, and the present weather at those models just for this worksheet, okay? So what I did was I copied down the first example that the worksheet gives you, and then I wrote down everything that it's asking for you. You'll notice that the one thing I'm not really asking for is the pressure change, okay? You don't have to worry about that right now. So for the first thing when we're looking at it, all right, we're just looking at this one. It's asking you for the temperature, okay? So if you look into your earth science reference table, bottom of page 13, you will notice that temperature is always, okay, it's always the top left number, okay? So in this case, for this station mile, it is 63. So I'm going to write 63, and then it's important that we always put in the right units. So for our case, okay, because we're in the United States, we're going to be using Fahrenheit, all right? So it's 63 degrees Fahrenheit. That is our temperature. Every station model that we ever look at, our temperature is always the top left, okay? Now, if you go down from that, there is another number, okay? It's 62. This is where the dew point is, okay? We haven't talked about dew point yet. That's going to be our next PowerPoint that I'm going to load up later today, okay? So 62 is our dew point. So just like temperature, right, our units is going to be in Fahrenheit, okay? So for dew point, now I'm going to put in 62 degrees Fahrenheit. So far, that's the two things that we got off of this. We got our top left and our bottom left numbers, okay? They are always in the same spot. This is always dew point. This is always temperature. They're both always in Fahrenheit, okay? Now, the next thing, the other number we have that we go across is we have 078, all right? If you look in your station model, you will notice that that is the pressure. So our pressure, okay, you keep the 0. It is going to be 078, okay? And for this, it's going to be in millibars. If you notice, in the reference table, you have your pressure line. This is also on page 13. At the top, it's millibars and inches. We're using millibars, okay? And then you can also convert it to inches. So that's what we have so far. Now we're going to look at our wind direction. So our wind direction, if we remember, we usually get a weather model, okay? It's usually the circle, and then it has this line sticking out of it. And that kind of tells us which way the wind is coming from. Because remember, wind is named after where it comes from. So if it's a north wind, that means where we're located, it's coming down from Canada, okay? If it's a south wind, it's coming up from the south. So in this case, by looking at this, we don't have any of those lines. So we actually don't have a wind direction, okay? So you can actually put, let me see if I get my markers colors right. You can actually put none, all right? There's no wind direction. And because there's no wind direction, we don't have those symbols on our barb, okay? Those were our lines. Triangle is 50. The long one at the end is 10 knots. And the shorter one is 5. So we don't have any wind speed, okay? So it's actually 0. And since we're talking about wind, it's not miles per hour for this. It's actually going to be knots. So you put 0 knots, okay? Now we're going to do, so we got 2 more left. We got cloud cover and we got current weather. So let's do cloud cover. So cloud cover is actually in this circle, okay? So how they do this is if you see a weather station, and I've always been coloring it in, but if it's like this and there is nothing inside of it, that means you have 0 cloud coverage, all right? There's no clouds in the sky. If you get it shaded in, we're only 25%, like this pie chart, right? It's kind of like a pie chart. That means there's 25% cloud coverage. Then you can keep going. If you get half of this, that's 50% cloud coverage. You keep going, then you get 75, and then if the whole thing is shaded in, that's 100%. So for this model that we had for number 1, it's going to be 100%, okay? So we have 100% cloud coverage, all right? Now, current weather. This one comes right out of the reference table. So you'll notice on the left, in between temperature and dew point, there is this weird symbol right here, okay? It looks like an equal sign. For the worksheet, they actually give you 3 of those lines. But what you're going to do is you're going to look at the bottom of your reference table where it says present weather, all right? So it'd be the bottom left, and you're going to look for that symbol. So when I look at it, I see it says fog. So that means that the weather right now, if you were to go outside at this station, there's not much wind, okay? There is no wind. It's 63 degrees, and there is a lot of fog, okay? So that is the present weather right now for number 1, if you were living in this station area, okay? 63 degrees Fahrenheit, there's no wind direction because there's no wind. Cloud coverage, it's 100%, okay? The dew point is 62, so it's really close to the temperature, and we're going to get into that the next PowerPoint, why that's important. Wind speed, nothing, because there's no wind. The pressure, all right, is 0.78 millibars, which we're going to get into our next PowerPoint. And then the current weather, it's foggy, all right? So that's for number 1. So we're going to do the same thing now for number 2. So I'm going to actually erase these answers. And now, not to be confused, we're going to get rid of the number 1. And now we're going to look at number 2, okay? And we'll get rid of this as well. All right, so we're going to go right down the list, okay? So we're looking at temperature again, okay? Just like our other station model, it's always going to be the top left, all right? So top left, we got 31. So it's going to be 31 degrees. It's always in Fahrenheit, unless they tell you otherwise, okay? Now, let's look at wind direction, okay? Remember, now we finally have the line coming out of the actual station model, okay? Before we get into the wind speed, we're just going to look at the wind direction. So what is the name of this wind? So if we forget, let's make a compass, all right? North is always going up, south down, west, east, okay? If we look, if we take that and we draw it up here, okay? It's in between southeast, okay? So it's a southeast wind. And if you want to say it's traveling northwest, you're allowed to do so, okay? I always just name it after where it's coming from. It's a southeast wind, but if you want to say it's traveling towards northwest, that's fine, okay? Now, let's look at cloud coverage. Number 2, the whole thing is shaded in. So if the whole circle is shaded in, it's going to be 100%. All right? Now we got to look at dew point. Dew point is the bottom left number. So that is also 31 degrees Fahrenheit. Wind speed. We have a long line, a long barb, and a short barb, okay? Remember, the long one equals 10. The short one equals 5. So it's going to be 15 knots, okay? Now our pressure is always going to be the top right number. So it's 003 millibars. That's our units. Now the current weather. This comes right out of Earth Science Reference Table, page 13. We look down, we try to find this symbol, and you'll see that it's freezing rain. All right. So for this one, the freezing rain, you go outside, it's cold. All right. It's basically just below the freezing point because remember, 32 degrees Fahrenheit is freezing. So that rain is going to be freezing rain. It's freezing as it's coming down to the ground. All right. 15 knot winds. Okay. Wind direction. It's coming from the southeast. And the dew point and the temperature are relatively close. They're the same, okay? Does anyone have any questions on this one that we just went over? All right, so I'm going to I'll quickly draw the next one. So we have number 3. Again, we have it all shaded in. We got it going across. We got a small barb, 0, 1, 1, 71. And then I'll put 4 down. All right. So now we got number 3 and number 4. We're going to go through these really quick, okay? So first, we're going to look at temperature, all right? We look at the top left again. Remember, it's always going to be the same. So top left, 71 degrees. And we're always using the same unit, so Fahrenheit, okay? Go down again. We're looking at wind direction, or what the wind is called, okay? So it's going from here, and I'm going to keep this compass up at the top. Just to remember, so we got south, north, east, and west, okay? So again, wind is always named after what it's coming from. So we look over, it's coming from the east, okay? So it's an east wind, which means it's heading west, okay? It's going right across. Cloud coverage, it's shaded in again. So we got 100%. The dew point, that's always the bottom left number. So we have 70 degrees Fahrenheit. Wind speed now. We only have one barb coming out, okay? So that's the small one. That's going to be 5, and it's always going to be knots. Now the pressure is always the top right. So remember, we're always keeping in that 0. It's always 3, okay? You always want to keep that. So 0, 1, 1 millibars. Now we look at the current weather. So if you go to Earth Science Reference Table, page 13, you look at the current weather, you kind of have these little drops, and that equals drizzle. All right. So it's light rain, it's drizzle, it's pretty warm because it's 71 degrees, okay? And you have a very low wind, 5 knots, okay? It's not that strong. In the cloud coverage, it's 100%, all right? Now, if we do this for the next one, all right, get rid of this. Now we're on number 4. So number 4, we got temperature. Top left again, nothing changes. 85 degrees Fahrenheit. Wind direction, okay? Now it fits in between south and west. So we're going to put southwest. It's a southwest wind. It's heading, all right, northeast. Cloud coverage, our first one where it changes, only 75% is covered. All right, now we go to dew point. That's the lowest guy. So we have 57 degrees Fahrenheit. Wind speed, all right, we have another one where it's only 5 knots. Okay, so it's a small wind. Pressure, top right. And now the current temperature, all right, it doesn't give us a symbol, okay? So for this, you don't have to write anything, or you could put calm, or you could put clear, all right? Not much is going on, all right? There's no significant weather being shown that there's no symbol, okay? Also, another thing, you'll notice, see how my line kind of goes through the dew point? When we start looking at these maps, you got to be careful reading the numbers because sometimes the lines coming out, they do cover the numbers. So you got to be careful, all right? All right, we're going to do the last one. So we have barb. Number 5. Does anyone have any questions so far? All right, let's see who's out there. Number 5, what's the temperature for this? Says there's a few of you watching. I know people are watching. Let's see, I'm talking to myself right now. What do we got? What's the temperature for number 5? $55, perfect. All right, so we got 55. And because we're talking about temperature, degrees Fahrenheit, okay? Always remember. All right, now we're going to do wind direction. So wind is named after what it is coming from, all right? So if it's going straight down, what's the name of this wind? So it's going to be a south wind, all right? Basically, it's heading north. Cloud coverage. So all of it is shaded in. So it's going to be 100% again. The dew point, okay? So the dew point is going to be 47 degrees Fahrenheit. Remember, it's a southwest wind, so it's really going north, okay? So I'm going to write heading north. You guys can see. All right, so wind speed. What do we get? So the wind speed, we counted up. We got a 10 and we got a 5. So that's going to be 15. 15 knots. All right, always remember those units. You don't want to put 15 miles per hour because that's not the same. You got to put knots. Now the pressure is always going to be the top right. So it's 998. And for this, our units are millibars, okay? Now the current weather, all right? If we look, we got these 2 dots. We go to page 13. It is rain, all right? So it's a 55 degree Fahrenheit day, and there's rain, okay? You got cloud coverage, the wind, it's 15 knots, and then you go from there, okay? And you have a south wind that's heading north. So just to go back to page 13, you don't have to memorize where all of these are, because if you follow the chart, it tells you what each of those numbers mean, okay? So over the weekend, all right, I'll give you a couple of questions. I'm not going to give you guys a lot over the weekend because I have to get grades in by Tuesday. So over basically anything that you're missing that gets graded, okay, especially those Google assignments, make sure you get them in because then they can only raise your grade. So the more stuff you do, the higher your grade is going to be raised, all right? I know a lot of you guys are doing what you're supposed to. I know it's not the best times right now. I know it's a little difficult to be learning off of stuff like this and videos and stuff, but I appreciate you guys what you're doing. So I'm going to load up moisture in the atmosphere. That's the next thing, okay? We're going to be learning how to read off of page 12 on the Earth Science Reference Table and how that basically gives us the weather formations that we see, especially where we live. And then after that, we still have a couple more weeks of weather, all right? So this is a big unit. It's important because, we experience weather all the time. And weather and climate are big deals, all right? So keep up the good work, all right? Does anyone have any questions before I go? As I go to sit down on my chair. Any questions? And again, if you have any questions later, send a remind, okay? And then we'll go from there. But you'll start to see that I'm going to start actually loading up stuff on PowerSchool, okay? I have all the stuff basically set up on Google Classroom, but now I'm going to start converting them the next 3 days. Okay. So if you have anything that you haven't done yet, okay, and you want to get those grades raised, definitely start handing in stuff. Okay. And again, if you have any questions on anything, just let me know. All right. I will see you guys later.